The genre of Japanese RPG doesn't necessarily mean made in Japan anymore, it means a style. It's well defined and we're excited when new ones come out. That's why today GameRanks wants to bring you the top 5 new JRPGs for 2015. Number 5, Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel. Released for the PlayStation 3 and the PlayStation Vita, Trails of Cold Steel follows students at Thor's military academy, specifically a class composed of both aristocrats and common citizens. The plot is centered around conflicts that happen around the country, as well as the characters maturing and casting aside their internal prejudices, which were formed simply by existing in 2 different social classes. Really, it's interesting to see a JRPG tackle the subject of classism, and not in the background, it's actually one of the main things that the game is covering. The game's battle system, as you can see, is not necessarily a massive departure from what you'd expect from a JRPG, but there's a reason why the company Xseed Games picked it to localize. If you're not aware of Xseed, essentially their business plan is finding games that don't really have a path to localization, but that fans really want. Trails of Cold Steel is one such game. The game sold very well in Japan and got high review scores. Combining that with its art style, which has a nice but not overly saturated color palette and gives you that feeling of serious but not too serious, The Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel looks very much like a fantastic addition to any PS3 or PS Vita JRPG library. Number 4, Grandia 2 Anniversary Edition. Grandia 2 is an absolutely fantastic JRPG from the Dreamcast era, which, bearing in mind, also means a lot of people didn't get to play it. Not very many people really had a Dreamcast, and that was the problem with it. So Grandia 2's plot is an interesting one. It involves gods and wars and people believing things that aren't true, and using people that believe those things to advance the agenda of an evil god that everyone thought was defeated, instead of a good god that everyone thought was victorious. Obviously, an incorrect view of the past has been spread around by the church/government in this game. Now, I obviously did everything I could to keep that as spoiler-free as possible, but include some kind of intrigue for you. Part of the reason to play Grandia 2 is that it has possibly the best battle system of any JRPG. Now, it plays like a turn-based, but in all honesty, it's a timer-based, or active time. But it differed a lot from active time battle systems in that the time actually tactically mattered. If you've ever played Child of Light, they essentially lifted the Grandia 2 battle system, and that game is phenomenal. You have a certain amount of time where you wait before you can input commands, and then once you've reached the time to act, you input them, and then there's a certain wait time depending on what moves you chose, that if you get hit during, actually cancels your turn and sets you back a little bit. I will say that's a very basic explanation of it, and it can get even more detailed than that, but we want to give you a video that wets your whistle and maybe gets you interested in the game. We picked this one because it's one of the best JRPGs ever made, and not enough people got to play it. A huge thank you goes out to Gung Ho Online for porting it and re-releasing it for everyone to enjoy. Number 3, Final Fantasy Typo HD is about a class in a military school, which sounds pretty familiar at this point. However, the original Typo kind of introduced this scenario to JRPGs, or at least repopularized it, and pretty much everyone pounced on it because Typo turned out so good. When they announced they were making an HD port of it and upgrading the graphics a significant amount for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Microsoft Windows via Steam, honestly I was pretty stoked. The Typo story is actually fairly dark and takes place in wartime. I don't know who exactly came up with this idea, but basically the war is conducted by students, which in our practical world sounds absurd. But in the world of Final Fantasy Typo, I cannot imagine a better choice. You have a wide array of characters with many different abilities that all play different and feel distinct, which is astounding considering they number in the double digits. They also managed to give all of the characters personality, which is very, very appreciated, and the game itself controls very good. The fighting is all in real time, and there's also some interesting tactical elements that involve sort of real-time strategy type battles on the overworld between armies before you take your party into the city and fight off the final remnants of whatever force that you're fighting at the time. Sometimes the game really shows that it was originally developed for the PlayStation Vita. During the HD port, a lot of the NPCs weren't able to be upscaled because they didn't have enough time to do it, but that doesn't change the fact that it is a massively fun, gorgeous, well-playing video game that if you're a fan of JRPGs and haven't checked out yet, I can't imagine what you're doing. It's a no-brainer. Do not hesitate hate. As with every game on this list, you must try this one out. Number 2, Tales of Zestiria. This entry to the Tales series is actually an action RPG, as many JRPGs are going the direction of these days. Zestiria does something that a lot of JRPGs do not, though. It is an open world JRPG. Now, this is becoming a little bit more common, but really Western elements are making their ways in, as much as Western developers are creating JRPGs now. Zestiria is a game that seems to divide some people, but other people absolutely just love it. The graphics are pretty, the story is great, and in all honesty, it's probably the best looking non-Square Enix developed JRPG at the moment. The real-time battles feature a system called the linear motion battle system. The cool thing is it gives you free running, and it kind of works even like a brawler type game or a hack and slash. Obviously, it's a lot more complex than that. In an environment where we are kind of starved for JRPGs, Tales of Zestiria is probably one of the more interesting looking titles and really deserves your time. And finally, number 1 is Undertale. While not developed in Japan, a lot of people are agreeing that Undertale embodies what a JRPG was meant to be, as well as adding its own original spin to the idea. Undertale is probably one of the more interesting JRPGs to ever exist because it features 3 ways to go. I mean, how you handle enemies and antagonists throughout the game. The first being neutral, meaning at times you fight and at times you don't. The second being the no mercy or genocide route, meaning you fight everybody. Finally, there's the pacifist route. You can actually beat this game without killing a single enemy, to actually make friends with them. The very idea of that is a little bit absurd, but the game itself is humorous in a way that Earthbound was. Undertale has received so much critical acclaim, I don't even know where to start. People love this game, and it's not just critics. If you go to Steam, it has an overwhelmingly positive rating with over 9,000 reviews. The game has a wide range of influences according to the creator, from Shin Megami Tensei, which is the series that the Persona games came from, Final Fantasy, Earthbound, Mario Luigi, and even bullet hell shooters, which is where the defensive segments of the battle system were inspired from. It's an interesting game, a challenge, and frankly a huge breath of fresh air for a genre that really isn't getting a lot of breath at all. If you haven't tried out Undertale and you're as starved for JRPGs this year as I am, stop denying yourself a fantastic JRPG experience and go get on Steam and play it. Have you played any of these, or do you want to? Which is your favorite? Leave us a comment and let us know. Also, don't forget to click the like button, it helps us a ton. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to GameRanks because we release videos every single day, and the best way to see them first is a subscription to our channel. Thank you so much for watching this video, and as always, we will see you next time right here on GameRanks.